Hi, everyone. This is Jacqui Cooper with the Crypto Mom 2 talk show and the Blockchain Legal Institute talk show. And I'm extremely excited to have on today Professor Lupien, who I've spoken with before, but we are going to be speaking about areas of law within Wyoming that have just evolved and developed. It's such a thought-leading state that it's hard to keep up. I know that he and I have many conversations throughout the year, and both online as well as offline. So today we decided to hop on to chat about the digital asset law that has been passed. And there's going to be actually a follow-up episode. So definitely like and subscribe, because there is an individual who's an attorney that I'm not going to kind of spill the beans about this, but he's the first one that actually took advantage of this new law. And I really want him to share his story because it's very unique, and his whole life journey is very special as well. And I have Professor Lupien to thank for introducing. So I know that some of you might know a little bit about my journey, that my background's law as well as in education, and that now the Blockchain Legal Institute exists as a centralized library for resources. In fact, one of the books that actually is listed on the Blockchain Legal Institute is one of the books that Professor Lupien has written, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But how are you doing today? Why don't you go ahead and share a little bit about your background? So for those that might not know your diverse story, that all the different windings and paths, they can learn about how you came to be at the University of
Mhm.
Wyoming and about the Blockchain Center, and just about, I mean, also for those that have not seen it yet, hop on over to LinkedIn. I will probably share a link just because it was so creative. The center just dropped a Santa Claus message for the holidays that talks about blockchain that just made me laugh. So happy
That's
holidays,
very
everyone, on
kind.
blockchain for sure.
Mhm. No, thank you so much, Jackie. Your words are way kinder than I deserve. So thank you so much. Yeah, we've been, Jackie and I have been friends now for, I guess, a couple of years now, and have worked on a number of projects together. And so, as Jackie mentioned, my route to academia is certainly a non-traditional one. I spent my career in industry. And I am a new product development executive that has worked in numerous Fortune 100 companies throughout my career. And around 2016 or so, while I was still in industry, I began working with a group of folks in Wyoming while I was living in New York City on creating an enabling digital environment for the state of Wyoming. Um, since 2016, when we started all this, Wyoming has now passed 37 blockchain enabling laws. We'll talk about some of those a little bit in a minute. As with most legislation, some are really exciting and groundbreaking. Others are just to fix definitions in existing law. So, we'll talk about that. Not all 37 bills are ones that, to jump up and down about, but probably about a half a dozen of them are really industry and world changing. So we can talk about that. So I started working with the Wyoming legislature around that point in time, and I then retired from industry in 2018. And in 2019, my partner, who is a woman from Laramie, Wyoming, suggested, let's retire to Wyoming. And so we moved out here, and we are still working with the legislature and the governor's office on this blockchain legislation. And the university approached me and said, listen, with all these changes that we've made, we need to develop a robust program at the University of Wyoming. So, which I completely agree. So I began teaching at the university, and to the credit of the university, they very quickly recognized that blockchain in all of its form, cryptocurrency, NFTs, smart contracts, all of payment systems, all the various ways that blockchain is impacting business, that we really needed to create this robust program. So and we created a center, because it's one thing to teach courses in one college, but blockchain is a technology that basically touches every academic unit across the university. I used to joke when I would speak about the university and blockchain, and say that we touch nearly every academic unit. But recently, a very talented young professor who teaches philosophy and religion began writing about blockchain. And once you start touching philosophy and religion, you pretty much have touched everywhere in the college and in the university. So I now say we touch everywhere in the university. And that's what the center's designed to do. It's an interdisciplinary center. 5 academic units kind of manage this center. It's our College of Business, our College of Engineering, and our College of Agriculture, our School of Energy, and our law school. And so all of these different colleges work together and to foster blockchain education across the campus. So yeah, very interesting pathway for what someone who I would identified myself as a non-academic, but now am up to my eyeballs in university life. So and by the way, it is having done a 40-year industrial career, I truly love working with young people and helping them really explore how this new technology is going to change the world. And I mean, that literally gets me out of bed every morning, is just working with young people and mentoring. And it's just everyone who can have an opportunity to teach should. It's just such a rewarding and such an amazing thing to do.
I agree with you. I mean, being an elementary school teacher in the special ed area, we sometimes forget the lives that we touch, and I'm seeing it from the kindergarten side. This year I'm doing kindergarten. You're seeing it from the adult education side.
Mm-hmm.
And with those that I who are interning with the Blockchain Legal Institute, I also, I'm touching the adult side, but it's such a huge spectrum of ages, and the fact that we have the ability to guide the next generation. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
just saying that to be trite. It really is. The creativity that they're showing is
Mm-hmm.
going to impact us and the community all over the world. And that's really exciting. Really
Yeah.
exciting.
And quite honestly, what you're doing at an education at an elementary level is equally crucial. I spend a lot of time dealing with digital literacy, not just blockchain education, not cryptocurrency or smart contract education, but digital literacy. The world is changing, and the way that technology is being applied across business is changing radically, even in the 5 years that since I've left industry and joined academia, to see not just blockchain technology really become embraced, but machine learning and metaverse and now AI. These technologies are being adopted at just record paces. And one of the biggest challenges companies have is just understanding, how does this technology disrupt processes that currently exist in my company. And LinkedIn has done a couple of studies over the years, and 3 years ago, the skill set that most employers were looking for in college graduates was the ability to deploy blockchain systems within their industries. And they just ran that survey again about a month or so ago, and now it's AI. Companies don't know how to deploy AI. And AI is a lot more than, you know, chat GPT that we use to, write a letter of recommendation or something. When you really get into the enterprise uses of AI, it's pretty staggering. And companies just, they need people that understand how to deploy all of these new technologies in a meaningful but also ethical way. And as a lawyer, I know Jacqui will certainly respond to this. AI, is an amazing tool that also promises to disrupt intellectual property in ways that we've never seen before. And companies need to protect themselves from these potential onslaughts in the future, which isn't even clearly defined right now.
I agree
And
with you.
so,
And you said the word I was thinking about, the ethical side.
mm,
And what was very interesting is that in this year, when we do our collaborative planning, there were two different AI tools that were introduced to the teachers that
mm,
they could use. And I don't know that they are, but I explored them, and they, are there for lesson plannings, for rubrics. You
mm,
can put in the Common Core codes in there, and it will
mm,
pop out things. But it was very interesting. In one little section of the platform, it had AI resistant tool. So you could actually create something that I guess maybe, even though it was generated with AI, that someone could not tell, which was
mm,
very interesting to me, that they were thinking about how do you block the search engines that are trying to see if you're using AI. And that
mm,
again goes to the ethics. Are we going to be, I don't have a problem with students using AI, and I use AI to
mm,
create letters, but you still have to read it. You still have to edit
mm,
it. You still have to think,
mm,
what does it apply? Does it have the meaning that you want? Um, I will say, for anyone who's listening, I will not use AI when I write the Bitcoin Cinderella books. That will be my own mind. But again, it's you do, and that's why what you're doing in the legislation with, and with Wyoming and the other things that are going to come down the pike, it's really important to think through these, both the applications, the definitions, and then not so much to control, but to monitor, to make sure that there is a responsible use of the technology. And
mm,
again, let's hop on over to the provisions of the Wyoming digital asset law. I was reading some of the definitions in there, and I was thinking to myself, huh, okay, okay. And then I kept thinking that these are definitions that are in this state. Are these
mm,
definitions similar to what other states are defining? Or
mm,
is there a consistent standard across? Or is it different in every one? And that was really concerning to me,
yeah.
because
Mm,
if the state that you're in is leading the way, and
mm,
maybe we need to be thinking about how do we create that standard definition so it's easier to
right.
be applied and understood? What are your thoughts about that? And what about the
Well,
law that just popped?
yeah, I mean, two things. First of all, sometimes states use definitions that are convenient for the state, but confusing to the industry. Perfect case in point, Wyoming is this first state to pass legislation around creating a stable token. Okay. Now, when I speak publicly, most people say to me, what the hell is a stable token? Well, we in the industry call it a stable coin. Okay. Circle, Tether, some of the others, they don't call themselves stable tokens, they call themselves stable coins. And why has the state of Wyoming chosen to use the term token instead of coin? Well, and the answer is because legislatively and legally, the state has to avoid running interference with Article 1 of the US Constitution, which basically limits what states can do in creating currency. Now,
Exactly.
no one is claiming that our stablecoin is going to be currency, because what it is it's a digital representation of a US dollar held on reserve at the Federal Reserve. But even the term stable coin, became challenging to a state And as we go out and talk, excuse me,
Yeah.
as we go out and talk about this, it's very confusing to the industry. And sometimes I even forget, and I'll start talking about the Wyoming stable token law, and they're kind of looking at me like, what is the stable token? And so, what we have to do, on a state level, because the federal government is refusing to really do anything legislatively in our space right now, and there's a number of reasons for that, and I'm happy to go into it if we need to. But but we need a common language, and because it will become challenging for the industry later if states have all these different definitions. The good news about Wyoming is being first, we tend to be the one that has an opportunity to do that. Another great example is, we were the first state to actually develop a token taxonomy. And, in that token taxonomy, we were able to define, the different forms that digital assets can take, either as a currency like Bitcoin and some others, but also as a security. And there are security tokens contemplated under Wyoming law. But then we took this added step, which no other jurisdiction had done before, of defining and creating something that's called a consumer or a utility token. Now, we had kind of talked about these in the industries, but nobody had a real definition around them. And Wyoming was the first one to say, okay, in order to fit into this category, your token has to have these particular attributes. For example, it has to, it has to have a consumptive purpose. It can't be marketed as a security under the Howey test. There's definitions. So it pleased me when the House of Representatives put forward 1628, I think in 2021, where they essentially took Wyoming's definitions and applied them to a proposed federal law. And not that I'm, happy that they're choosing Wyoming's definitions because I live in Wyoming, but because they were choosing a common language. Now we're starting to see a common language develop. And so I think it's incumbent upon the states, since the federal government is reluctant to do anything right now, it's the states that have to drive this language. And so great question, Jacqui, but an amazingly important one.
Yeah, no, I think that as various innovative technologies are created, there needs to be, and maybe there already exists, a coalition of states that are already looking at how do we standardize the definitions.
Mhm.
And I know
Yeah.
there are a lot of really great associations in
Mhm.
the United States that are probably doing, this in different ways, but
Mhm.
I think to drive the federal side forward, we probably need to be more assertive maybe in that area, but there's a lot of different things going on the federal
Yeah,
side.
I mean, there's the Digital Chamber, which is a wonderful
Yes,
organization in
yes.
Washington. There's BA, a smaller organization called DLGA, which is working specifically Digital Ledger Governance Association. Apologize for that. That is specifically taking a state-focused approach, where BA and Digital Chamber tend to be more federally focused. So there are organizations, respected organizations out there that are looking to do that. And but states have the ability through its ability to create legislation to drive that. And that's one of the things we're doing in Wyoming, is trying to drive that language and kind of be that beacon for other states to be able to follow. Look,
So,
the reality, not to cut you off, Jacqui, is
okay.
we're not going to grow this industry if Wyoming is the only state that passes this stuff. Okay. I mean, although I like the fact that Wyoming has a little bit of a head start, we need broad legislation across every state. And, almost in the same way that the uniform commercial code exists, where every state has adopted similar model law so that states can interact together legally. And businesses, most importantly, have legal certainty as they operate, that, what I'm doing in Texas is legal in Wyoming, and what Wyoming is okay with is great in Colorado. We need to get to the point where we have common model law And I think if states do that, the federal government will follow suit.
That's a really interesting concept, the UCC doing a uniform digital asset commercial
Well,
act.
they are. They've announced Article 12,
Mm,
which is incidentally very, very similar to the digital asset mapping we did in 2017, I believe, where we mapped digital assets to UCC law because there was no other way to do it. And although initially there was some resistance from the Uniform Law Commission, they kind of turned a corner and said, actually, I think what Wyoming is done, has some merit. And they are now developing and releasing model law for every other state to adopt, specifically around digital asset certainty and this commonality. So we're getting there. I wish we were going faster, but we're getting there.
So
So
with the digital asset law that, was just passed, what challenges or uncertainties generated the need for that?
what you're talking about the Registration Act?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, there was a very specific need for that. And because one of the both advantages of digital assets, but also challenges, is the pseudonymous nature of it. And there are certain holders of digital assets that want to be able to identify that they own these digital assets to be able to use them for leverage in certain products where borrow against it, things like that. And so what Wyoming wanted to do was create a voluntary registration system. So not everybody has to do it. There's no law that says it's mandatory. We wanted to create a voluntary registration system so that businesses that did want to take advantage of some of these leveraged products can basically identify that they really do own these digital assets and it's validated by the state. So, very specific, unique purpose. I don't advocate that everybody go out and register their digital assets with the state of Wyoming. I think it's more for people who are like institutional investors and where there is SEC law around how some of these institutions can interact with digital assets. So, what Wyoming tries to do is we want to work very closely with industry. And as industry identifies challenges that are preventing that business or that industry from being able to take advantage in a positive way of digital assets, Wyoming wants to be the one to say, you know what, we'll take a look at that. And if we can come up with a legislative reaction to that, we will. And that's been pretty much what our pathway has been through the 30 some odd bills we've passed. Is we've looked at what are the challenges that businesses have operating in this space. What can we do to provide legal certainty, which all of your listeners who are business people know legal certainty is crucial to any business, and what are those, how can we plug those gaps and create as much legal certainty as we can, because selfishly, we want digital asset businesses to grow, but we also want them to grow in Wyoming. So by Wyoming providing that legal certainty, we're inviting these companies to say, come here, either domicile in Wyoming, which gives you, access to our laws, physically move here, which, Wyoming is a wonderful place to live, and hire our university graduates who have blockchain educations. And we believe that southeastern Wyoming in particular can become the Silicon Valley of digital assets. Why not here? I'm old enough to remember when Silicon Valley was orange groves. You know, you know, why not here? Joe Lupien, when he was speaking at our very first WYO hackathon, which we've now had 6 of them. So in the blockchain world, anything that's coming up on its 7th annual is pretty amazing. But Joe Lupien actually made that point. He says, why can't why can't the next, digital asset unicorn company be formed in Wyoming? And now a number of very prominent companies have moved to Wyoming as a result of our digital asset legislation. Kraken has domiciled some of their businesses in Wyoming. IOG, Charles Hoskinson, has been very big on Wyoming and has domiciled IOG, which used to be IOHK in Hong Kong, into Wyoming. Tried to convince him to name his company IOYO, but he went with IOG instead. And by the way, Charles has also been a shout out to him, an amazing friend of the university, and does a lot to work with the University of Wyoming. So that's exactly the environment we wanted to foster in Wyoming, and it's working.
So you've mentioned 37. I'm really I'm blown away by that number because I didn't realize it was that many. Um, do you think that any one of those 37 was, I know it's like having 10 children.
What's your favorite child? Sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let me describe the family. How's that? Because there's a few that I think are really, really noteworthy. As I mentioned, many of them are just technical corrections to laws to change terminology for existing laws. So they're not the ones that you write home about. But what are the important ones? Well, we're the first state, as I mentioned, to actually pass a token taxonomy bill, and that really started everything. You can't have legal certainty if you don't know what you're talking about. So we did that. We passed one of the first sandbox laws to allow companies to experiment with novel digital asset concepts within the state under regulation. I mean, we don't want to bring fraudsters and crooks into Wyoming, but if you're, working with our Secretary of State's office and generally our Division of Banking, because it's, normally the stuff that can be financial, you're allowed to experiment in ways that are not contemplated under the law and have direct access to our legislature if what you're doing needs to have some legislative changes. So that's been important. One of the, I mentioned the Stable Token Act. Wyoming is going to be the first state to actually issue a stable token, and we're going to be doing that in early 2024. Our Stable Token Commission has been working for about 7 months now on framing this out, and so we're the first state to do that. I've talked about the mapping digital assets to UCC law, very important again around providing certainty. But probably the legislation that I think is the sexiest and really the one that's going to move the needle not only in Wyoming but for the U.S. is our special purpose depository institution bill. We've created the first new type of financial services company in the US in 60 years. And they're 100% reserve banks, which many of your listeners will appreciate after the Silicon Valley, bank, bankruptcy. 100% reserve banks are as safe as you can get, number one. But number two, these SPDIs, speedy banks as we call them, can also custody digital assets. So they're the very, very first legal banks. I mean, these are chartered banks that are chartered by the Wyoming Division of Banking, have all the same rights and privileges that any other state bank would have. But now they can provide this custody service, which again is very, very important to for institutional investors and others that need third-party custodians as part of their as part of the SEC. So we've done a lot, and we're not done yet. By the way, I failed to also mention that part of the reason why we've been so successful at passing a lot of digital asset legislation is Wyoming was also the first state to actually create a standing joint committee of our legislature. Most legislatures have subcommittees where if bills are discussed, then they have to go to a full standing committee, and then that full standing committee goes through everything that they have to do before it goes to the floor. So you've got a multi-step process. Well, about 5 or 6 years ago, Wyoming took the step of creating a standing committee that can create legislation, vote on it, and send it directly to the floor. So very, very powerful. And one of the reasons why I think Wyoming has been, besides just the innovative thinking of both our governor and our legislator, and by the way, both houses of our legislation, what's really I'm really proud of about our digital asset laws is most of them were passed either unanimously or near unanimously. I mean, in the political climate we live in today, to have both parties agree on anything is pretty remarkable. But the need for this legislation is so important that in Wyoming, quite frankly, your party lines have been irrelevant. In fact, one of the two biggest proponents of digital asset legislation have been our Republican president of the Senate and our Democrat minority leader. The two of them working together have been, really driving most of our legislation. And with all due respect, name another state where that's happening.
Well,
So,
it reminds me of the type of consensus that we need to move things forward.
mm,
You're an amazing repository of information. I mean, I want you to make sure though that during our conversation here that you shared information about your book, because that
oh, yeah.
also was really important. And
Oh, I have
yeah,
unfortunately, there you
yeah,
go.
and if people can't see, I'll definitely make sure that they have the link for the book. Tell us why you created that book, because that's another important step here too.
Well, yeah, interestingly, and again, it wasn't just me. I have a co-author, Mary Lassity, who is a very distinguished scholar at the University of Arkansas and was really one of the first academics to create a blockchain center and really to do academic level research into this space. And Mary and I, as colleagues at our respective universities, realized that most of us were using commercial books in order to teach blockchain because there wasn't really an academic level textbook. We were using, Saifedean Ammous's, Bitcoin Standard. We're using Mark Gates's book on, how, the history of the blockchain. And, there really wasn't something that could be cited academically that other schools could use, again, to this whole common language of teaching in a fairly common way. So we felt that creating a textbook that covered this topic was important, and it is a textbook. I mean, this is
It
not a
is a
little,
textbook, yeah.
you know. And but what's great about this textbook is, first of all of the proceeds from the textbook is being donated back to our respective universities. So neither Mary nor I are earning anything off of this book because we thought it was so important. And not only that, by doing that, believe it or not, this textbook can be bought on Amazon for $29. And most textbooks, as we all know, are hundreds of dollars. I mean,
Yeah.
you often can't even buy the used version for $29. So it's important to us to have it available. And so anybody can go onto Amazon. I actually think if you buy the electronic version, I think it's only $9.99 or $10.99 or something like that. So anybody who is really interested in an academic look at blockchain, please, go out and buy the book, and also feel comforted in that the proceeds from this is actually furthering blockchain education.
Which I love. I definitely love that. I know that your center is there, it's the in 2024, you're going to be doing a lot of very innovative events along with
Mhm,
other things.
mhm.
So as we wrap up our conversation,
Sure.
what would you like to highlight and feature, even though I know we're going to have more than one conversation? Um, for what's coming up in 2024, and also for anyone who's listening, depending upon when you hear this conversation, definitely go into the link and check to see what the calendar is, because you might hear about this after an event is mentioned, and there's always new things going on. So definitely check out what the Innovation Center is doing. But what are you going to
Sure.
be doing?
Well, a couple of things, and one involves you, Jackie, which is under a ARPA grant. University of Wyoming has developed a high school education program, which contains 12 modules, video modules, all dealing with different aspects of not only blockchain but really digital literacy, because we do go into cybersecurity and how gaming is impacted by this new economy. So we do some pretty cool stuff. But you know, university is probably a little late to begin thinking about a blockchain or a digital innovation career and education. I'd like to have high school students say, "Hey, listen, I'm really excited about this new economy, and as a result, I want to choose to go to the University of Wyoming or choose to go to the University of Arkansas because they have these robust programs." If you're already at a university, then you have to kind of go, well, what do they got? But I also think that when you're in high school is when you need to start understanding what this new economy is going to look like, and more importantly, how to protect yourself in this new economy.
Yes. Yes.
Young people, and I'm talking high school and college age, are the generation most willing right now to trade personal privacy for convenience.
Yes.
And I could probably say with some level of certainty that a vast majority of young people don't read EULAs before they click accept and don't understand exactly what they're agreeing to. And now I'm not saying that you need to be a lawyer and you need to read every EULA, but you kind of have to know what's going on. And I mean, this is an important aspect of young people's lives, but it's also a very, very dangerous tool if quite frankly, it isn't used, properly. And I mean, one of the stories I tell is, I'm proud to announce that I'm going to be a grandparent for the first time, and my daughter has chosen a very unusual name for my daughter, which I'm not going to announce here, but a very unusual name. And not long after, she started getting targeted ads,
Hmm.
which actually had this name in the targeted ads.
Amazing.
And there's no way that this is a coincidence. And how does that happen? Well, what you everything you do everything you do with a keyboard is tracked and recorded.
Yes.
And I don't think many people understand that. And so I think it's important societally for young people to understand the implications of what they're doing. And I talk about this with my students now as well too, about be careful with what you post on the internet because it's there forever. And most of them are like, oh, it's innocent stuff. I mean, it's why is it a big deal if I am over age and I post a picture of me drinking a beer at a party? Well, you may be running for Senate in 15 or 20 years, and that may come back to haunt you. And they're like, oh, I'm not running for Senate. And I'm like, well, no one who's in Senate right now thought they were running for Senate in high school. So, it's just understand that, this powerful tool, has a dirty underbelly to it if you're not careful. So that's why I think digital literacy is important, but also, understanding, how this new economy is going to work. Um, the sooner you understand it, the more you're going to learn about it, and the more you're going to be able to successfully navigate it as you go through college, if you go to college, and graduate and join the workforce. So I think high school is the perfect time. And we are partnering with Blockchain Legal Institute on helping to get the word out on that program. We also do our annual hackathon, as I mentioned. We call it a build-a-thon because a lot of people still don't understand the term hackathon outside of our industry. But we've been doing that successfully now for the past 6 years. This coming September will be our seventh. And we've had incredibly noteworthy speakers. Charles Hoskinson, obviously, speaks with all of his support of the university. We've had Joe Lupien, we've had Vitalik, we've had major speakers that are policymakers in Washington. We've had state policymakers. It really is a pretty amazing conference. And so, after the new year, start watching Twitter or follow, Jacqui or myself. And, we're going to start, announcing what's going to be happen at our seventh annual event, which will take place third week in September. And so we'll be working quite a bit on that. And we just bring a lot of people together from diverse backgrounds, and we just talk about the industry. And from that, legislation does come. Companies are formed. I'm really proud of. We looked at it. A couple of dozen companies have been formed, and that's only people who have come to us and said, "Oh, I came up with this idea of my company when I was at your we call it the Stampede, at
Yeah.
your Stampede." And so, we're building companies. I'm proud to announce that there's 4 companies that have launched recently that are my students that have graduated and said, this is an industry that I want to work in, and and have launched their own companies around this. And that's ultimately why we did everything we did in Wyoming. It is about jobs. It is about, we want Wyoming to be ground zero for this industry. We want University of Wyoming graduates to stay in the state and work with these types of companies. We want to work with state residents that are being displaced as the economy changes. And we want to be able to help them understand that there's a role for anybody in this industry that really wants to learn it. And it's never, I mean, I'm an example of it's never too you're never too late to learn. I got involved in this industry around 2014, and which was pretty early by blockchain standards. But I'm a 60-year-old guy, and so blockchain has changed the trajectory of the last few years of my career. So it really does promise to be able to do that. And this is the world that we're all going to have to deal with. And even if your VCR, if you still have a VCR, is flashing 12 o'clock, you're going to have to learn how this industry operates. You will be paying for things using your phone in the next couple of years. It may or may not include a central bank digital currency. It will certainly include privately offered stable coins. It may involve the Wyoming stable token. Okay. You will be engaging with NFTs. Your businesses will be utilizing smart contracts. Okay. Payment systems will be dominated by blockchain. We can't stick our head in the sand. We need to, we need to get the word out so that that transition to this new economy involves as many people as it can.
I,
So,
I agree with you, and I'm smiling because someone had sent me a Today Show clip from 1994, where Katie Couric and her team sitting on the couch were saying, well, what's the @? What is and what
Yep,
is internet? And they were trying to describe it, and all I kept thinking about was 1994,
yep,
2000, and, and just where we are now. What the where we've come, where we're gonna go. People are asking now, what is a blockchain?
right.
And so in 20 years from now, not even, because blockchain has been around for a lot longer than just a few years, but
Mhm.
maybe in 5 or 10 years, they're going to be looking back saying, how could we have even asked that? It's
Right.
all part of what we're
Ve-
doing.
Very true story. As I mentioned, I was in new product development, and I won't mention the company, but it is one of the largest food companies in the country. I was working for them, and I remember speaking to the board about the need for us to develop a B2C website.
Mhm.
And I remember a board member actually asking me, isn't the internet just for drug dealers and money launderers? And isn't that funny? Because now here we are, 20 years later, and introducing this new technology. And what are we criticized as? Or isn't blockchain just, money launderers and drug dealers? And so we're going to go through the same path. I'll leave with this one last thing to your follow up to your Katie Couric story. Hanging on my wall in my office is a story in the Daily Mail on December 31st of 1999 of things that will not survive the new millennium. And the number one thing on their list was the internet. So that did not age well. In fact, the very meeting you and I are doing right now is courtesy of the internet. So everyone that basically professes that a technology will die. Technology never dies. Jacqui, in the last couple of years, Uber will never survive. The taxi and limousine commissions and city governments are going to kill Uber. They didn't kill Uber. Okay. You cannot stop technology.
It's all
The
about innovation.
It's about innovation. If a technology provides benefit, people will adopt it.
That's right.
And there's no legislation that can stop it. There's no version of Elizabeth Warren saying this is evil is going to prevent a technology that the people want to use to move forward. And that's blockchain. I teach in my class that when I know blockchain is successful is when we're using it and no one's thinking about it. Just
Exactly.
like nobody thinks about the internet anymore as they're doing things on their phone. Nobody is in awe that their app is,
No,
doing something.
people complain when they can't get Wi-Fi. So
Right. Right. So blockchain's the same way. Where supply chain tracking is going to dominate the industry. Smart contracts are going to dominate the way companies interact with each other. We're all going to be paying. I mentioned that list a minute ago. We're all going to be doing that. And to us, it's just a new and cool feature. But it wouldn't exist if it wasn't for blockchain. And I think we're in the beginning of the first inning, and I
I,
think we've got a long way to go. And universities like ourselves, institutes like BLI, they are providing the education and certainty that this industry needs. So that's why I'm so appreciative of not only your friendship, but being a colleague and working with us. And then there's a lot of great stuff ahead for this industry.
Very much so, and definitely for 2024. And, for those that haven't had a chance to hop over to the Blockchain Legal Institute, it's really a centralized library for decentralized resources. There
Mhm.
is a legal overtone to it because everyone needs to learn how to stay compliant, but there's a lot of content involved with that. So,
Mhm.
I'll leave us with that, and I'm just gonna say to everyone, definitely we're gonna have more than one conversation with Professor Lupien. I will have all of his links in the blog below, so that way you can,
Mhm.
connect on the Stampede and everything else that's happening. And I'll
Perfect for Christmas.
definitely the book for sure, because I know that that is really important from an educational perspective and a use perspective. Even businesses should get a copy of it, just so that way they can understand the history. But as I always say at the end of all my shows, be kind to yourself, be kind to others. We are so interconnected. We're all part of one world, and now more than ever. So everyone, have a great day, and we will chat soon. Bye, guys.